Welcome to the Nick Blevins Family Ministry Podcast. Our goal is to help you maximize your church's potential. You'll hear from top leaders in children's, student, and family ministry about the principles and practices they use. Now here's your host, Nick Blevins.
Hello and welcome to the Family Ministry Podcast. I'm Nick, I'm your host, and in this podcast we interview leaders every week that can help us with principles and practices to lead children's ministry, student ministry, and family ministry overall. And our guest today is Ricardo Miller. And Ricardo and I talk about the top 10 mistakes that leaders make. And we talk about it in the context of children's ministry, but it really does not matter which role you play in, what ministry you lead. These apply across the board. He gives some great tips, things to avoid, and what to do instead so we don't make those mistakes. But before we jump into that, if you were listening last week, you know that I mentioned that we're going to announce something big here in a couple weeks, probably next week, that you might be interested in. It's something we did last year to help connect leaders and help us grow and learn from one another and all that. So I'm really excited about that. They're going to be new. There's a lot that we're adding, getting some different people involved, and we have a lot of great stuff to give away as part of that too. So to hear about that, make sure you're subscribed to the email list. Just go to nickblevins.com, and in the right menu, you can get to subscribe, or if you want to download a free resource like a PDF about 30 apps we use to lead family ministry or 100 volunteer appreciation ideas, anything like that, if you download, that'll get you on the email list, and you'll hear about that announcement next week. So you don't want to miss that. I'm excited. I hope you'll jump in and be a part of that. But let's go ahead now and jump into my conversation with Ricardo Miller about the top 10 mistakes that children's ministry leaders make. Well, today I'm joined by Ricardo Miller. Ricardo, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, man, it feels so great to be a part of it today. Thank you for having me.
Well, Ricardo, tell us a little bit about yourself and your family and your ministry.
Thanks for asking. Ricardo Miller, who is he? I'm originally from Nassau, Bahamas. I'm an islander, but I moved to Texas 17 years ago after marrying my beautiful wife, Aisha Miller, who's from Texas. We have one son, Ricardo Jr., who's 15 years old now, playing basketball and has some mad skills. So we're excited about all that God is doing in his life. I've been doing children's ministry now for 21 years. I serve at a church here in Dallas on staff part-time for the last 10 years. And then I travel maybe about 80 times within the year serving or assisting a church in relation to either evangelizing children, equipping parents, or training children's ministry workers. That's been our focus for the past 21 years.
That's awesome. That's good work. And what we're going to talk about today is probably related to a lot of your own experience, but even the experience you see working with other churches, because we're going to talk about mistakes, common mistakes that children's ministry leaders make. Yep. And how to avoid them. And you've probably seen a lot, in your work with churches. So one of the first ones you say that they make is not getting a mentor. So tell us about that.
Nick, it is amazing. When I first started in children's ministry, I thought, man, God gave me everything that was necessary to succeed, not knowing that someone is currently succeeding where I'm going to be challenged or where I'm being challenged. And so I think one of the greatest mistakes, that's why I would label this one number one, is not getting a mentor, not realizing someone has succeeded where you're about to go. Someone is currently succeeding where you're being challenged, and they are willing to help you. And so one of the things I push for the guys who are in my coaching programs or when I'm doing training is find someone who is succeeding where you're challenged and ask them to help you. And so don't try to reinvent the wheel when there's someone enjoying the wheel already.
Yeah, and you can ride on it. Yeah.
If you can ride on it. And so I'm a big believer. Someone is succeeding where you're failing. And if you would submit yourself to the process of simply asking someone to help you who have the victory where you're being challenged, you can have the victory as well. I often say this. I'm in Dallas, and Nick, if you knew how to get to Houston, but I've never went to Houston before, and I said, man, I know you're going to Houston tomorrow. Can I follow you to Houston with my family in the car? if you know how to get to Houston, I've increased my chance pretty much 100% on getting there because I'm following someone who is going there. You see what I'm saying?
Yep,
who knows
definitely
how to get there. And so that's why mentorship is critical. And here's the deal. Mentors come in a number of different ways. You can have a mentor is someone who will give you the time of day to pour into you and help you to see how what they've done to succeed. You can get a mentor through books. You can get mentors through individuals you decided to glean from through going to review or assess what they're doing in their space. And so mentorship comes in all different types of packages. And I tell people, when you're thinking about a mentor, you're not thinking of a person who has it all together in every area. You're looking for someone to help you specifically in an area that you are having challenge, but they have the victory in.
That's a good point. Yeah, because sometimes I think people think of like, I need a mentor for all of life.
Yeah,
so who do I get? Versus you're saying, pick the one thing you want to work on, find somebody who's doing it well, and have them mentor you.
In that area. So you may find someone, in all honesty, who is exceptional at children's ministry, but unfortunately, they don't take care of their family. So
yeah,
you can.
And that's not going to help you take care of your family.
Right. So don't glean from them holistically. You just want to glean from them on the practices that they've put together in children's ministry, not all of the other dynamics. But there are people who would dismiss everything from that person because of an area they see that the person doesn't do well in. I say it like this: eat the watermelon, spit out the seed.
That's good. Yeah. I've heard eat the meat, leave the bones, something like that. Like same
something
idea.
Like that. Yeah.
Like you don't have to take the whole thing, just part. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so
good.
you're going specifically after what you need. And that's what you want out of a mentor. So here's the deal. You can get books on how to capitalize on mentorship, because really, I believe this too, Nick, someone is assigned to help you. Show me anyone who has been great and have accomplished anything of significance, and they will be able to point back to people who help navigate them along the way to get to where they are. So the mentorship moves into the number two, because as you were preparing to, not going to conferences, seminars, and being a part of a learning environment. That's the second and huge mistake, because mentors are more than likely going to push you for continual learning, continual education. And when you say I want a mentor, you realize you're really saying I want to learn, right? So the next thing is making a commitment. One, I may not be able to get in contact as much with the people I want to glean from through mentorship. But the second one is I can go to the environment setting where training and development is taking place, where the people are having the victory, where I'm being challenged. That's why I think number two is huge. If you're a children's ministry leader, if you're a person who's passionate about doing ministry and you're not going to conferences, seminars, and workshops to be poured into, over time, you're going to find yourself limited. You can be great at what you do, but even those who speak at conferences need to go and attend conferences, not to speak, but even to be to learn.
Yeah. I definitely love seeing people that speak at conferences also learning at the same conference. You know what I mean? Like when they are investing in themselves while they're there to teach, I think that's important.
That's huge, man. It's a must. It's a must. You know what they say? Leaders are learners. Okay. Yeah. And if you want to stay fresh, one of the things you want to do is you want to stay in environments, in settings that is constantly pouring out content that can help elevate your skill. One of the things I tell some of my colleagues is find the best environment that is providing the best content and stay within that environment. Here's what I feel that comes out of that. When you start to get into a higher level of environment in relation to training and content, when you leave there, you're going to be challenged. You're going to be stressed. The next thing after that is simply you being willing to apply.
Yeah. And I know some people, maybe they haven't been to a conference because it can be expensive, but in the day we live in now, there's like free online things. There's much cheaper options. There's local things that are cheaper. There's the ability to like buy the teachings from a conference afterwards, for a tenth of the cost of going or something like that, which is good. Yeah.
And here's the deal. They're inside of our cities, man. There are always someone who's doing it big and grand and is killing it. And what I found out with my team, what I decided to do was I call a couple what I call big boys who are performing at new level. I say, hey, man, do you all have any internal training going on for your team? They say, oh, yeah, we do 2 trainings. We bring in some guys and they're training our staff. I say, hey, can I bring 4 of my people over? Man, we are limited budget, but you guys are, couple of miles away from us and we want to learn. Every single time I've done that, they've opened their doors to say, hey, a smaller church in the city who's trying to step up their game wants to glean from us. Come on in.
Yeah, we recently did a kind of a children's ministry volunteer training one day on a Saturday, and it was a collaboration of a bunch of churches in the area. So we made it, basically pulled all our churches together and made it work. And the cool thing was we were able to do some things we could never do on our own, because we had other voices and, breakouts and the whole thing. So it was good. So another mistake you say is that, we don't learn how to delegate early on. I think this is so true. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about this.
Man, listen, I have the distinct privilege of serving at a church and serve as the consultant for a number of denominations and coaching and really going in and helping to structure children's ministry departments all across the country. And one of the things that I've noticed, hands down, is a lot of children's ministry leaders do not delegate appropriately, if they're delegating at all. And so 1, it is to delegate. 2 is to know how to appropriately do it, right? Because there are people who say, well, you know what, I asked people to do this and man, I passed it on and it was just terrible. So I decided, you know what, if it's going to be done right, I need to do it. Bad idea. Bad idea. You have to understand that when God called you to do a thing, he has also called someone to help you do that thing. And you got to know how to capitalize on the help. So learning how to delegate allows you to do more of what God has called you to do. I think it's Andy Stanley who says, do only what you can do and delegate everything else. Right?
Yep.
And so over the years, I had to learn how to, as a children's director, how to delegate the fact that I don't need to set up the chairs. Come on, man. Someone else can set up the chairs. I don't need to make photocopies. I don't need to stock the supply cabinets or closet. I don't. Yeah. Other people can do that, but there are some things only me can do and need to do because the church hired me per se to do these particular things. But there are other things. So I tell leaders to make a list of everything that needs to be done, and then ask yourself how many of those things you're doing that you don't need to be the one doing. And then look around you, because here's the deal. You remember now, someone is assigned to help you. Look around you and say, who can help me with what? See, someone is called to help you, but no one person is called to help you with everything.
Sure. Yeah, because then it's like the same thing you're doing. They'd be doing it all.
Right. So you now need to know. I have a lady who is gifted, Nick, at shopping.
Gifted at shopping. I think a lot of people would say they're gifted at shopping.
See, so when it comes to VBS supplies, when it comes to fall festival and egg hunts, listen, I give her our budget. When I look at what she brings back, I'm like, how did you do it? She said, oh, I had coupons. I knew this store had half price. I knew this store had comparison price, blah, blah, blah. And she got us a whole lot more. If I had to do it, I had the church card. I'm going to the store and I'm just going shopping, right?
Yeah. No deal hunting. It's just whatever's available.
Right. See, but now watch this. I'm not running around on a Thursday at 5 different stores doing something I'm not graced for. I'm giving someone the opportunity to extend their giftedness to provide us quality experience and better purchasing elements. So someone's called to help you. You got to realize delegation is one of the things children's ministry leaders need to learn, because if you don't do it, you will burn out. You will burn out. And here's the deal. And before we move on, you will then start to believe that the church is throwing a lot of stuff on you, and then you will start having a bad mindset as, man, they're working me like a slave. Oh man, I just don't like, this church is, they hired me for 40 hours, but I'm working 60 hours. And, these people will see you up here all night working. And those are all internal mindset that a person has established for themselves, when in reality, you can work appropriate hours. You can work doing a lot without doing a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. You could get bitter about the workload, when in reality, if you could delegate, it wouldn't be as much.
Yeah. Yeah.
On you. Yeah. You mentioned earlier that, leaders might delegate and then it doesn't work. And so then they take it back. I've heard that phrase, like, you got to delegate, not dump it on other people, like your responsibilities. Do you think the reason that happens is because we just don't train them enough, or, like equip them enough?
It's the huge deal right there. That's it right there. I mean, if you don't, someone may be called to help you, but they're not you. And oftentimes you miss the point that even though they want to help you, they may not know exactly how you want it done. So I have heard people say, well, I don't have time to train. I say, you can't afford not to train.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it is true that you have to spend more time on the front end to train, right? But then you save it in the long run, like tenfold or 100-fold or whatever.
That's it. That's where the magic comes along. So for me as a leader, I spend about 80% of my time, Nick, training. That's what I do now. That's
good. That's a good balance, I would say. 20% you're doing, so to speak, 80% you're training. Yeah.
And that's how I'm able to do. Someone says, man, how do you do all that you're doing? I'm spending most of my time training and building so that I'll be able to do more.
And then the next mistake relates to that, because it's not learning how to build a team. So obviously you're delegating. If you're training 80% of the time, it's because you're doing it through a team, right?
Yeah, because here's one of my models that I work with churches with. You need a leader, but a leader needs a team, right? Yep. You can't say you're a leader without a team. And there are individuals who have the title of leadership, but what they do is they have a lot of helpers, but not teams that have been built. Teams that have been built are individuals who come alongside the leader for a common goal, with the mindset of allowing that leader to train and position them for the betterment of the department. So I tell leaders, you're not building a team if you're not training, if you're not meeting with them, if you're not assessing skill set and trying to identify strengths and weaknesses and place people in their sweet spot and so forth. Teams are built. Teams aren't automatic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just because they serve together doesn't mean they're a team, or just because they work with you or help you doesn't mean it's a team. Yeah.
Right. So the leader has to get caught up with this mindset. If I'm a leader, I need to build my team. And the better my skill in building teams, the better my team will function as a team. So you got to read books on team building. You got to study the dynamics of what benefits will come when the team starts to function at its appropriate levels and allow the vision to come more alive. Because team building is a critical dynamic that a lot of children's ministry workers have not taken or given attention to. What people do in children's ministry, they ask for helpers. And what do I mean by that is they simply, hey, can you help me with VBS? Hey, can you help me with, right? And what happens is people come alongside, they help you for the event, and then they walk off after the event. So what I've done over the years, I think I heard somewhat Jim Wagman said years ago when he talked about who is it that you need? Because when it comes to recruiting volunteers, people are out there and they want to serve, but you don't have a list as to what you're needing. And so one of the things I did was I wrote down the leaders or the people I needed on my team. When I looked at my list, it was 17. Nick, it was 17 people I needed. At the time, we only had 5.
Yeah, so that's a lot of recruiting that's got to happen.
Right. And watch this. As I recruited them, then I needed to start to build them and started to help them to capture this vision that if we can get 17 individuals to start functioning as leaders within the team of children's ministry, do you know what we can do within our local church and within our city in relations to impacting children and families? And it protects me and the other 5 we had from burnout. So one of the things we did was we have an event planner, Nick. We have a volunteer care director because our numbers are large. We wanted to make sure I have someone who's paying attention. We got people in the hospital. We got, paying attention. We have curriculum. You have someone, how many children's ministry leaders are buying curriculum but don't ever spend the time to study those curriculum appropriately to see if it fits the church? You say, well, Miller, I don't have time to do that. Someone on your at your church, someone who's serving within your department, you've heard them scrutinize the curriculum before. They obviously got an eye to identify weakness and strengths, right? Why don't you pull them aside and say, you know what? We're going to be changing our curriculum next year, or we're going to be reviewing it. Can you look at these 3 new curriculum services and let us know which one of them best fit our church culture, tweak it, blah, 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 and get back to me?
Yeah, that's good. Well, because a lot of leaders do edit curriculum, and that takes time too, that they could delegate if they had the right person.
Takes a whole lot of time. So the team helps to bring vision alive. I think someone said it like this: alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much. Yeah,
that's good. Well, you mentioned that you spend that team that you put together, plus you spend 80% of your time training and all that. So what is I think a lot of people would love to hear, what does a week look like? What does the 80% look like in building a team practically? Because I think people would love to hear, is that one-on-one meetings? Is it group trainings? Is it a mix? So like, what does a week look like when you're training more than doing?
Great question. One-on-one, definitely connecting with all of my top tier leaders. You have to talk with your people. You have to talk with your people. And here's the deal. Trying to talk to a team in the weekly meeting is not sufficient because you're not going to get to the heart. And I'm knowing that I can get more from you when I connect with your heart and I understand your skill rather than me just focusing on your skill and trying to get labor from you. If you know I care for you and I'm serving you as a leader who doesn't only want to take from you, you're more inclined to want to work and serve with me. So you definitely, number one, you have to be prepared to give some time of yourself, meaning I call most of my leaders within a week. Hey, how are you doing? How's the family? How's the kid? Somebody say, how's the family? I don't need to go personal. Yes, you need to go personal.
Yeah.
People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And in this hour of people volunteering within a church, people have lives and things are happening constantly, their marriage, their children, their health, and so forth. To go and just pick up the phone and say, hey, man, thank you for serving in the children's ministry, man. You know what? I really need you to start being here earlier. And I also need you, the church told me you don't tithe. I need you to start tithing. And you start diving in.
Yeah, that'll go well.
Yeah, I know, right? But if you started the concept on, I care, man. I care. How are you doing? Okay, I know, how's work and so forth. So I connect. So when I when I text my team, which also I do, that's another thing. I text encouragement words. I'm a motivator. So I'll text praying you guys have an incredible week. Thank you for serving our children. Because those are the hard investment. Then when we get in our weekly meetings, I get in those meetings and say, okay, from the check-in station to the gift shop to our first Sunday leader. Okay, guys, what can we do a little bit better? Because here's the deal. This is down. And we're able to assess. In those meetings, we're able to evaluate. We're able to start to discuss how we can improve in different areas. But we do text messages. We do conference calls. We do a weekly meeting with different levels of leaders. And then we do like retreats, and then we do twice a year training at the church. And lately we've been doing an annual conference where all of us, the top tier leaders, go to a conference together. That's a lot of time spent together. And here's what I found out, Nick. When we're talking about building teams, I found out that the people I spend the least amount of time with are the people who I normally lose.
Oh, yeah, sure. The relationship's not there.
Yeah, it's not.
So are those all volunteers? Is it a mix of staff and volunteers? Because I think people would think about like, if I have a staff team, we can meet weekly, but if it's volunteers, can I do that weekly? Is that?
I just have a staff administrative assistant. Everybody else is volunteer.
That's what I thought. Yeah. So I think that's good for people to hear because a lot of people listening are in the same boat and might think, I don't know if we can meet weekly or, how do I text or communicate every week?
Yes, what we do, a 1 hour meeting when we do meet. And here's what else we do. We do a conference call. And because we'll be moving towards conference call a lot more because they have this free conferencecall.com. And I have people call in. As a matter of fact, we had one on Monday. And we have people call in the night before the holiday. Okay? People will call in. Yeah. They'll be like, hey, man, I'm waiting on the fireworks, but I'm out here. I got the phone muted. I'm listening.
Nice. Don't mind the noise in the background, but I'm listening.
You see, the goal is I'm trying to get some content to you, and I know people are busy. Yep. Here's the deal. People got to remember, Nick, it can happen. It could work, and it don't have to be frustrating, and it don't have to be overbearing. You just have to become creative. You see?
Yeah, and we have the technology to make that happen much easier than maybe in the past. Yeah, that's good. And then another mistake you mentioned is not celebrating the victory of others. And I'd love to hear, maybe that's all encompassing victories of like your team, but is it also about like other churches and other, children's pastors?
Listen, the day you stop recognizing the victories of others is the day you start to dry up. Because here's the deal. It is like water to the soul to encourage another, but it also blesses you at the deepest level when you can honestly celebrate the victories of another. It blesses you. It removes some toxic stuff that's in us, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So here's the deal, man. There are a lot of people who are sabotaging themselves because from the check-in station to the gift shop, the gift shop has not been organized. But now the lady took off a half a day. She organized the gift shop. You hated the fact that it wasn't organized, but now it's organized and you walk past and didn't say anything. Bad move. Bad.
Definitely. Yeah. Because then, how's she going to feel about it? Not recognized. The next time it gets messy, it may not get clean again.
You can lose people because of stuff like that. Okay. That's a victory. That's a win. You say, you know what? We've been trying to have people to show up on time, Ricardo, but half of our team doesn't show up on time. I'm like, okay, what's the size of your team? You say, okay, we got 10 people who need to show up and 5 of them show up on time. 5 don't. I'm saying celebrate the 5. Okay. Yeah. If you celebrate the 5 will turn to 7 and the 7 will turn into 9. And before you know it, it'll be the full team because what you celebrate grows. What you give attention to flourish. And so you got to be willing to recognize what you want and then celebrate it. So that means if a church is doing great, celebrate them because here's what's going to happen. You're going to be celebrating something you see done right, and more than likely your attention factor is going to be seen to that, and you'll attract that more because we attract what we like. We attract more of what we give our attention to. So the same thing applies to recruiting. You said people aren't wanting to serve, but 2 people got recruited this past Sunday. Man, all on Facebook, victory, we huge. People are joining our department. This is awesome. Now watch this. The next week, you have someone walk up to you, hey man, I heard a lot of people are joining the department. You may have only had 2. But once you said people joining my department and you're excited about it, another guy walks up and says, hey man, you know what? I'm not doing anything at church. If you need me, I'm willing to help as well. What you celebrate grows. So that's what I'm saying. Learn to celebrate. Most children's ministry leaders that I've met that are on the break of burnout, which is a lot of them, they are like Debbie Downers.
I've noticed this. I don't know if you've seen this, and people listening may see this too. You see this a lot in education. And some of it in education is because there's a lot of red tape and just a lot of ways that teachers can't teach how they want. But you can see that if they've taught for a long time, particularly like older high school, something like that, they become maybe Debbie Downers too, and it's only focusing on the negative. That's true.
Yep. You see? But I tell her, you remember, we teach this. We know it's in the Bible. Life and death is in the power of our tongue. Okay? So here's what you have not because you ask not. Watch this. According to your faith, be it done unto you. Once you start to realize, you know what? Speak those things that are not as though they were. You can start elevating your mindset to start to believe all things are possible to them that believe. Now you can get to a place where, man, listen, we should not have a volunteer shortage. So I'm believing God that we're going to have a waiting list. So every leader who is working with me can tell you, I am a magnet for recruiting volunteers. I love it, right? And then I have other leaders who tell me, well, people don't like to come and join me when I recruit. I say, I can almost pick 5, 6 things that they're doing wrong that's causing that. But the thing about it is, Nick, I wasn't always that way. I saw someone else who was killing it right in our city who had volunteers on waiting lists. I went over there, celebrated with them, and I said, man, tell me what you're doing that we're not doing so that I can change some of our approach. Guy told me 3 things. I went back, applied the 3 things. About 4 months later, I saw a change, went back again. Hey, I'm doing those 3 things. Anything else? Got 3 more, went back. 5 years later, I'm like, I'm a volunteer recruiting master.
Nice. I think everybody wants to know the things. What are the 3 things? What are the 6 things? You're saying a big part of it, though, is your attitude. The attitude, like the momentum, the culture you create.
Yeah, the attitude. And then you remember that first point I gave up earlier where someone wants to help you and then someone is succeeding where you're failing. So if your attitude is right where you understand God is not a respective person, Nick, if Nick can be succeeding and I ask Nick to give me 2 things and I don't justify why I can't do those 2 things, if he can do them and I can do them and I can be like, well, I maybe need to tweak it a little bit, but I can push for that. And then when I start to see the return of it, if you celebrate what you see as a return, guess what happens? It motivates you to keep pushing. But what happens is, someone said to me the other day, oh, Mr. Miller, man, you told me to do a thing and I did it. And, I was aiming for 10 workers and I got 3. And I'm telling you, man, I don't know if that thing works. Come on, dude, you got 3.
You got 3. Yeah, that's right. Celebrate the 3.
Celebrate the 3. And then next month, do it again. And then the following month, do it again. And guess what? In 3 months, you can have what? 9. Now you're closer to your 10.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Because it is easy to bounce around, be, week to week, plugging holes, stressed. And it would definitely impact your attitude for sure.
Of course.
If you have to live like that for too long. And the next one we're going to talk about probably relates to that too. And that's not taking a vacation. That would also add to this attitude issue, I'm sure.
Huge mistake children's ministry leaders make is not shutting down, man. You're just taking some time out and finding something for them outside of their call, outside of their job, every day, all day. They're home making stuff for VBS. On Saturday, they're at the church setting up for children's church. On Sunday, they're in service. On Sunday evening, they're going visiting hospital. On Monday, they're recapping Sunday. And it's like, and then after a while, you see the drain. You got to take a break. You got to stop. You got to stop. And you got to find something that will allow you to be free. So for me, Nick, lately, man, I signed up to do a half marathon. Okay. And in training for it, it was like an unplug for me. You understand what I'm saying? But then I told my wife does my travel schedule. And I told her, hey, man, block 2 family vacation for us. Okay. Block it. Even if we didn't go anywhere, just shut us down. Okay. We're not doing anything. We're not going up at the church. We're going to drive to Houston or something. Just shut down. And here's the deal. It will help you in the long run. Someone said to me not so long ago, man, I got too much stuff going on to shut down. Hey, if you don't shut down, your body will shut you down. Okay? And eventually, this thing will catch up with you to where you start to lose your real joy for your call. So you have to learn to take those vacations. They said there's a study out that I think it's like 70% of Americans don't use their vacation time.
Oh, fully. I could see that. Like, especially to use all of it. You know what I mean? I could see that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wonder if it's more or less in ministry. It could be worse in church world. Yeah.
But watch this. Watch this, Nick. It's important. If you notice the churches that are thriving really right now and the pastors appear to look like the healthiest of pastors, those are the guys who are taking the 2 and 3 weeks vacation and they're gone. They got sabbaticals.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
That's been really good. And so I've been pushing now for a sabbatical. Like I have shutdown moments. And then here's the deal. You may not be able to take a full vacation, but what you can do is find moments where you're taking some time off, at least weekly. You got to shut off the process of overthinking and overworking to the place where your mind can rest and your body can rest and you can smell the air. You can enjoy life outside of work.
Yeah, and I know one of the challenges for children's ministry leaders is Sundays. So they might take vacations, but it may never include a Sunday because they don't feel like they can staff, their ministry when they're gone. And that's a mistake too. Because if you're still there, if you've got Sunday coming, it can be a vacation, but there's still going to be that pressure and that burden.
Hey, and listen, if you can't shut off, it's an unhealthy sign that you're heading in the wrong direction. Hey, my wife and I, we went on a cruise, man. I filled my bag up with books. Then I had my laptop. She didn't even know my laptop was in the bag. And then when I got in, I signed up for the whole week internet. So I'm like, I got to check emails. And this was about 2 years ago. And she's like, oh, no. No. And I was like, what? What?
She's like, I'm cutting you off.
Right?
Taking that internet back.
Hey, one of the most sweetest feelings, man, is to have a Sunday you're in a city. And I know this don't sound right to some people, but man, you're not going to church because you're on vacation.
Yeah, I know. I get that. I totally get that. Yeah, I think it is good. I think it's good to sometimes, like our pastor will visit another church, and for him, the pressure's not there. So he gets to go to church, he gets to learn, he's worshiping. But he's not preaching a message, and you know what I mean? So it's definitely, he'll do that a lot when it's just he's in town and he's, off on Sunday. Not so much when he vacations, he goes away, which like you're talking about, we do that. I think that's important. But I do know the tension of my ministry's not in a place where I can not be there. And that's obviously not a healthy thing either. So the key is, I guess, going back to those earlier mistakes, delegating, building a team so you can get, here. And get there fast.
And when you look at your mentor, or you start looking at how do you take breaks? How do you set it up that way? One of the things I say, Nick, quickly, is I build my team with the mindset none of us is forever, and there will be Sundays where something's going to happen that you may not be able to be there. So all of us have to build with the mindset: what would happen if I'm not able to be here on Sunday morning?
And I bet you would agree, too. The other thing I think of is sometimes you need to take the Sunday off to force your team to step up in your place, and maybe even force you to realize, what, this can happen without you. Sometimes we think a little too much of ourselves, and it's like, oh, actually it worked, and it worked fine. That's good. Another mistake you mentioned, you kind of talked about this a little bit earlier with the one-on-one interactions, is not giving back as much as you take. It is easy, right, to just ask and give me and help me and all that. So tell us about that. Listen,
man, I think it's Stephen Covey who talks about the win-win principle. This is where I started to realize over the years that I was doing more, and a lot of people were helping me, but it looked like it was more about me than them. And then I realized if I wanted to really do anything of significance with the help of others, I needed to make sure that they didn't feel like they were being used. And so the goal I have now, as I'm working with children's leaders and my team and so forth, is how can I give back to them in different formats and not just take. And so we're living in a generation. After I got that, I started to realize we're living with a group of people who are now saying more clearly, especially the millennials, what's in it for me? So because I've adopted that principle before I got that lesson about millennials saying what's in it for me, I was already more of an attracted person to work with because I was not pushing it only to take, but to give. So in our training, I don't teach only for children's ministry. I teach for life. So what we're teaching our team now, Nick, is time management. We're teaching our team how to organize their week. We're teaching our team people skills. We're teaching our teams how important to take care of their health. And so I had one lady, she joined my team a few years ago, and I reached out to her and I said, hey, I would love for you to be on our leadership team. She says, you know what? I don't know. I just been in church at this church for a year. I don't know. I said, listen, she said, I've never served in leadership. I said, we will help you. I will walk you through the process. I think you're the kind of person who will make a great leader. Long story short, she decided to take on that role. I gave her a checklist of things she needed to do, send thank you notes to her people, go by the doors and talk to the different teachers and see how they were doing. She told me about a year later, she said, Pastor Ricardo, because I was doing what you said at church, which was such great principles, I was out of work, and she worked in the hospital with nurses. And she said she started doing the same thing, writing notes to other nurses for doing a great job and complimenting people. And she said she got a promotion. They asked her if she wanted to become a student, and her boss noticed it.
That's great, yeah.
So here's the deal. We weren't taking only from her, but we were also giving to her. We were helping to make her, not only her make us. That's when I'm saying, how can I help you to become better so that you don't only feel like I'm taking from you, but you can also see the value that's being given back to you?
It's interesting because when we talk about this, we talk about building a team and delegating. I think about how like it's all so related, because if you can build a team and delegate, then you have the time to invest in people like this and care more about them, versus if you don't, you're again scrambling. And then you can't create that culture, and again, it's hard to recruit to that culture. But so that's what's tough, is getting it going is tough. But if you can, it sounds like you create that kind of culture, you can do all these good things.
Watch this. And then your reputation becomes, oh man, he's always using people, man. Last time I took off 3 months trying to help him with this stuff, and it almost feels used. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then people start pulling away from you, and they'll be like, nah, I don't want to, I'm not children's ministry, man. Stay away.
But the opposite is true too. Like if you could create this culture, people are like, oh, I want to be on Ricardo's team. Like, because he does this, or that you can create that kind of reputation too, and then recruiting becomes easier.
Let me dive this. I gotta say this quickly. One of the approaches that I'm working with one of my churches that I'm coaching the leader, I'm doing this 4-wing approach, Nick. It's the leader, helping the leader to identify himself, and then it's the team, which is, watch this, the leader needs the team, and then the team needs goals, right? So the goals is what makes the department accomplish something within a year. But watch this. Number 4 is what I'm going at right now. Number 4 is the culture. So the culture of the children's ministry department comes from its goals. So that means if you don't like what your children's ministry is looking like, meaning that your people aren't feeling appreciated, meaning your people aren't showing up on time, meaning people are scared to work in the children's department, that's a culture that you're building. And it's affecting you, and you need to put goals in place that will change that so the teams can implement it, which has been directed from the leader.
That's good. That's good. As opposed to like goals that are just about the ministry itself, more numbers here or whatever. Make goals related to the team culture and getting that where you want it to be, and then get the team to help you get there. That is good, because the funny thing is the team helping you get there creates the culture that you want, probably. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think sometimes we don't focus on culture enough, and culture in some ways could be a word to summarize a lot of what you're talking about here. Like all of this is culture. And so if we can do a better job, that's helpful. Another mistake you talk about, and I think a lot of us wrestle with this and want to do better here, is not learning how to empower parents to take the lead, in their children's development. Tell us about that one, and what are some ways that we can not make that mistake?
Nick, most children's ministry leaders came into children's ministry because they say, I like kids, okay? I love working with kids. But they later learned that in order for you to really influence kids, you really need to learn how to influence parents. So this is one of those areas where I think it's a must, that if you're going to be a children's ministry leader, you have to learn how to get parents engaged, how to get parents involved. So what I've done over the years, I've started gleaning from reading books from Disney to successful PTA meeting schools, learning how culture is turning, and how do we get active parents who have continual education goals and jobs and health and all this stuff. How do I get these parents to now focus on the spiritual development of their children? So one of the things I think is mandatory, I think it should be done by every church, is you should have some kind of annual, biannually training. Parents have children, but a lot of them don't know what to do with those children, Nick. And someone said to me the other day, well, we had a parenting training or workshop, and, our church is pretty big, but we only had 12 people. Celebrate the dozen, okay?
Yeah, goes back to that earlier one. Yeah.
Highlight the dozen. And listen, if you really have influence, see if you can get those dozen on the stage and give them a certificate in the front of the 800 people, and then do one 3 months down the road. I guarantee your room will have 50 people in it.
That's true. That is true. People want to get better, generally speaking. And so if they see some other parents where it's like, hey, they look like they improved. I mean, they got better as parents. They learn, like, I want that too. That's true. The other thing I think about too is, I've only recently, through some other wise voices, been able to think about this more. But sometimes we always think about empowering parents on that mass scale, like a big event or whatever. And there's always like what about the small group? Is there something, can there be a 12-week small group with parents that's like, it's only designed to be 10 or 12, but it's really good for the 10 or 12? Like, I think that could be good too, because the big event is hard to do sometimes, so.
It really is. And here's the deal. This is where you have to study your space or your church or your culture and your people to be able to now build for what will be best. You can do conference calls with parents where you have once a month call. You can do videos, have a YouTube channel for your children's department where you're giving parental tips. And then you share it through emails and you encourage parents, if you go and check out the video this week and leave a comment, we'll give your kid a prize at the gift shop. Tell the children.
Children will make sure their parents do it.
Yeah, and then celebrate it. Once you give attention to it and you bring recognition, you say, these are the top 20 parents who watched the full video on YouTube of Andy Stanley talking about parenting today, and they left a comment, and then, the children go up on the stage and say, your parent listen, man, you got all the other kids. Mom, why you ain't watching the video?
Yeah, that's right. I could have had a gift, or I could have had candy, or whatever it is. Is there anything in your church that's gained traction in terms of, empowering parents in the last few years that you could share, or anything that you've done for a while?
A small group approach has been what we've worked for a while. I do a lot of one-on-one. I think it's critical. I think you should make yourself available to parents. This is when you're able to have a team where you now can meet and do the things that others can't do. I deal a lot with parents who sometimes, as a children's ministry leader, you can tell this girl is about to cross over into the next stage, and I need to meet with mom and dad and just say, what are you guys thinking about little Susie right now? Because, nothing alarming in a negative way, but as a children's pastor, I just sense the next phase of her development is coming soon, and how are you guys preparing for that? And so stuff like that I've been doing a lot of. And I've been finding a lot of parents have been appreciating it, meaning a sensitive children's ministry leader helping with their son. I don't know if you've worked with young people before, and you can almost tell the turn is coming. Adolescent is just, she is changing, he is changing, or they are changing. And some parents aren't trained or they've never been taught how to capture those times when they're changing, and they lose their children a lot in those moments. And so that's one of the things we've done a lot of is really one-on-one. We do the annual training, and we have the struggle just like other churches do. We don't have that totally on lock, but we're getting better at it.
Well, yeah, and I think you have to start somewhere. And if it's kind of like the other things we talked about, if you can build the reputation, celebrate those wins, then you can get better and better and reach more parents. Another mistake you say we make is, I would agree, is not saying thank you enough.
Yeah. But hey, listen, man, people notice a good thank you, and you can't program it to see, what I did years ago, I started writing thank you notes every weekend for my team, and it started to get old, right? And so I realized, okay, don't program it, but simply establish ways to create thank yous in a unique way. And man, it changed everything, because I started sending thank you notes in text whenever it come to mind. So if I thought about you, Nick, and you came to mind and you're on my team, I'll be at the mall on a Saturday and I'm like, you know what? Nick came early last week, and you know what? How he set up the children's ministry stadium. I'll be like, hey, Nick, thank you, man, for setting up the stadium last week, Sunday. You rock, man. Praying for you and the kids and the family. You guys have a great Saturday. Man, on Sunday morning, I got Nick, hey, man, you know what? I was standing in the mall. One lady was getting on my nerve. You sent me a text. That was so encouraging.
Yeah. And you're like, I was at the mall, too, in the next store or whatever.
And it was like, Nick was like, the person's like, hey, man, it was so appreciated. I appreciated that. I've had people where I just send a thank you and say, I'm praying for you. And I really was praying for them right then. And it just, they were like, that meant everything. Then we send the cards in the mail with a $10 gas card. And it's not the amount, but it's the thought. It was like, you know what? Hey, here's a $10 gas card. Here's a Starbucks card. You rock. You came in 3 days this week while you were on vacation. And you didn't have to do that. And then this is one right here, Nick, is the killer right here. In the parking lot, I'm pretty loud every now and again. I'll be like, yo, what's up, Nick? Thank you very much for this week, bro. You are awesome. See, and I'll be like, ladies and gentlemen, it is guys like Nick that makes our children's ministry incredible. He'll be like, it wasn't that much. I just came for 2 hours.
All the introverts are like, oh no. But you still feel good about it.
Yeah. And last thing on it is, watch this. Anytime they give me a mic, anytime I got a mic in my hand, like the pastor, hey, man, can you announce something or something? The first thing I said is, I want to recognize 2 or 3 people. Just quickly, can I say thank you to Miss Kim, who runs this? Thank you, Miss John. And then to all of our volunteers, you guys, you're impacting the lives of the next generation, and we love you for it. And Pastor, like you said, the announcement.
Yeah. Yeah, and like put that last. Yeah, I'll get it in there, but I just got to thank some people first. And what this goes back to, I think the thing you've been saying a lot is you got to celebrate the positives, the victories, the things that are being done well, which is big. Because even I think last week we had our elementary and our preschool director were both gone on the same Sunday, and their coaches who lead leaders and all that did a great job. And normally that'd be a great opportunity to send a note card, except I wanted to tell them all, like, you all did a great job. And in the email, I thought, this is, before I hadn't thought about this originally, but I thought this is a good chance to even remind them of what we value, that we don't value leaders who everything depends on them and they make it great when they're there. We value leaders who, when they're gone, it runs just as well. So, but I hadn't thought of that before I started. I was just going to send an email to say, thanks. You did a great job. You did what, we've asked you to do, which is a lot. And, but I, in that moment, I thought this is a good teaching thing. And it reminds me of what you're saying, that if you celebrate those things, then you get more of it in the future, which is good. Well, the last mistake, although I'm sure there's 100 mistakes or 1,000,000 that we make, but one of the last ones you say is we're not ourselves, that not being yourself is a big mistake.
Hey, I tell the people on my team, I said, if 2 of us are the same, 1 of us is unnecessary.
Nice.
We don't need both of us to be the same. And so the power of me finding me and the power of you finding you, Nick, makes our children's ministry better. But here's what happens. A lot of people try to be, let's just say, like the leader, right? And the value of service, what they bring to the department, drops because they are not themselves. It's difficult to work with difference, but difference is necessary for higher level performance. So if you're going to get a great team, if you're going to build a phenomenal children's ministry, you're going to need difference. And you can't get difference when you're trying to be me.
Yeah, and we can serve in the same position, have the exact same role, but because we're different, it should look different.
It should, and it's going to come off to bring like a puzzle. It's going to be with 2 different shapes with the intent to bring a picture alive.
Yeah,
and so that's what you're aiming for. And so I'm pushing constantly. Watch this. Actually, as a matter of fact, most people don't know themselves. Most people haven't taken the time to study them. And not to accept their areas of weakness, but to simply be able to know where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, and know how to sharpen their challenging areas and how to bring to light more of what their strengths are. All of that helps to make a person more valuable when they're on the team. And so I think it's critical for you to know when you're working with kids, this is who I am. But then at the same time, this is who God may also be wanting me to become more like. So I'm open to learning. I'm open to be stretched, but know you. Because here's the deal, Nick, and I'm done. Watch this. When you're not you, you won't last long in that space because it's not natural. It's not real.
You spend too much energy, not being yourself and doing the job.
Yeah. But see, when you're you, Nick, right now I've been doing children's ministry for 21 years, and I feel like I can do it for another 21 years. But lately, in the last 5 to 10 years, I've been finding me more, and the light of service to which I bring to my space is becoming like, woohoo, I'm super pumped and excited about doing this because I'm in my zone, man.
Yep, that's good.
My whole deal is when you find you, and then you find you, and the other person finds themselves, and we learn to work together, it's amazing what we'll be able to accomplish for the kingdom of God.
True. Yep. Well, Ricardo, this has been really, really helpful. How can people connect with you if they have some other questions or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, I'm on social media everywhere. Twitter, Ricardo Miller 1. That's the number 1. Ricardo Miller 1 on Instagram. Then Pastor Ricardo Miller on Facebook. And then you can go to our website, ricardomiller.com. And you can email me. Love to answer any questions your listeners may have.
Great. Well, Ricardo, again, thanks for taking the time and sharing these mistakes with us and how we can, avoid them, hopefully, because I know all of us can look through this list and identify probably a few, that we're making right now that we could go work on. So thanks for the time. We appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Have a great day.
Well, that was a fun conversation, partially because Ricardo is so much fun, but I just loved everything we talked about. In some ways, it was a list of 10 mistakes that ministry leaders make, but in other ways, it was like, here's the foundational principles for leading in ministry. So that was really good. I would say one of the action items I would take coming out of this episode is look at the list of 10 mistakes and pick the one that you're making right now. The one that you're making the most, the one that you're probably doing the worst at. And then this week, figure out, write down, decide on one thing you're going to do to change that, right? We can't change everything in 1 week or 1 month, but what's one thing you can do this week to stop making that mistake and instead do it the right way, so the way that Ricardo talked about, whatever that mistake is for you. So I think that'd be a good step to take coming out of this episode. In the next episode, I interviewed Tony Morgan, founder of the Unstuck Group. Tony and his team there, they work with churches to help them get unstuck, like you might think. So they provide coaching and consulting, but Tony just released a book called The Unstuck Church, and it really looks at like the life cycle that churches go through. And so you can use their assessment to figure out where your church is, what are the things you need to do to either maximize that season and that stage of life or get out of it because maybe it's not where you want to be. Maybe your church is stuck. So we talk about that, not overall for a church, but even just as a ministry. So with your ministry in particular, where's your ministry in the life cycle? And, how can you maximize that or maybe change that depending on what it is? We're also going to announce the thing that I've mentioned. So I hope you're subscribed to the email list on the site. I hope you're subscribed to the podcast because we've got great new episodes every week. But I'm really looking forward to next week with the interview with Tony and being able to announce this new thing that I hope you'll be a part of. So I'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Nick Blevins Family Ministry Podcast. We hope this helps you maximize your church's potential. We would love to hear stories of how you apply what you've learned. You can do that by leaving a comment on iTunes or in the show notes at nickblevins.com.